welcome. It is the Wednesday edition, rather, of the cover story. I'm Siobhan Campbell. I hope all are well as we get into it this evening. And we're looking into the matters that are taking place at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, where the JLP counsel for the Gordontown Division in East Rural St. Andrew, Neville Whitaker, has accused his PNP colleagues in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation of treachery. This after the PNP members engineered the selection of one of their own, that is, Councillor Lorraine Dobson of the Springfield Division, to serve as the deputy mayor. The PNP and JLP each occupy 19 seats in the KSAMC. It's customary in such a situation of a tie for the deputy mayor to be selected from among the ranks of the opposition. The PNP controlled the mayorship by virtue of having won the popular vote in 2024, and Councillor Whitaker says the PNP councillors cannot be trusted.
The leader on our side, that is Delaware Williams, he was elected as deputy mayor. He has decided to resign and move on. We have a 1919 relation now. I thought the principle would have been carried in that the individual who is going to be deputy mayor would have been chosen from the side where the deputy mayor resigned from. I was surprised when I heard the nomination coming from the majority side. I am baffled.
Very sad.
What this is saying to me is that when you people talk, I'm not to listen because I can't trust you.
That is Neville Whitaker, the counsel for the Gordontown Division. Well, the JLP's Delroy Williams served for well over a year as deputy mayor before he left the role to make a successful bid for the Central Clarendon seat in the 25 general election. At Tuesday's sitting of the KSAMC, the corporation moved to select his replacement. The PNP went to the meeting with 15 of its councillors, while the JLP caucus turned up with six members short. Sensing the opportunity, the PNP members broke with tradition and used their majority to select Councillor Dobson as the deputy mayor. Councillor Whitaker and his JLP colleagues then walked out of the meeting. One of them, Councillor Andrew Harris of the Hughenden Division, appealed to Mayor Andrew Swaby to intervene.
The honorable man, do not say that you're saying today. You tell your colleagues and go down that slippery road. Stand up for something.
That's Andrew Harris. He's the JLP counsel for the Hughenden Division. Well, we are now joined by political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chung to discuss this matter this afternoon. Good afternoon, Sir Chung. Chang. Kevin O'Brien Chung. Sorry about that. So, Kevin, I see them talking about principle, morals, convention, but at the end of the day, the PNP council, seeing a chance of a political opportunity, took it.
Laziness and bad management is what this problem is about. If you give your enemies an opening and they take it, who's to blame? Why only 6 JLP people turned up or whatever? Clearly, it's incompetence on this organization. And do they have a leader? Because I said you cannot blame your politics is a proxy war. Let's face it. It's not bullets and swords and all that, but still, it's two opposing sides trying to gain power. That's what politics is about. And you are supposed to be organized and be on the ball if you are a good political party. If you give a big opening to your enemies, like you're playing football, and your defense split right open and a man run right down the middle and score, whose fault is that?
And that's where I'd like to take you, Kevin, because they don't seem to be relying on anything within the Local Governance Act as an actual defense. They're suggesting the convention is as held. But if I recall, after the by-election in 2024, there was a tie and there was an expectation at the time for the deputy mayor to resign so that the PNP could put someone in place. And the JLP refused, citing that there was no opening.
Well, then there's convention and there's the law. If I remember rightly, the one in St. Catherine, that's what the law said. The bylaws or whatever stated clearly, and it was followed. That is why after the protest, they kept quiet. But this one, I'm not an expert, but I'm only what I'm hearing. I'm using that as the basis of my conclusions. This is a convention, and convention only holds up when both sides are equally strong to defend it. When one side is no defense, convention goes away. And as I said, the JLP, in my view, is trying to blame the PNP for their incompetence and disorganization. And the question which naturally occurs, the JLP caucus, who is the leader? The leader should be responsible for making sure everybody comes to the table when there's a vote. And if you don't have a leader, it shows incompetence, and it shows that the JLP hierarchy outside the KSMC, they don't consider it important enough. So as I said, I don't blame the PNP for taking advantage legally. They did nothing illegal. They saw the opening. If they outmaneuvered the JLP, that's the JLP's fault. As I said, politics is war by other means, as I think Bismarck said that. And so you must expect your enemy to take advantage of any opportunity they have. And if you give them the opportunities and they take advantage of it, well, you are to blame.
But our democracy, Kevin, does rely to some degree on conventions, if not necessarily the law itself. There is the principle that sometimes we expect both sides to uphold. Otherwise, there could become a situation where there's an erosion of trust. Do you feel that we've reached that point now, not only necessarily limited to the local government arena, but in our politics in general? It seems that we have now come to the point where no conventions can be relied on when you simply have to stick to the raw politicking and the law.
Trust but verify is a very old saying. Yes, you have conventions and you can trust your people to abide by them, but you have to make sure if they don't abide by them, you have backative to stand up. And the JLP did not have backative. So they trusted, but didn't verify. And I think it's not even trust, it's incompetence. As I said, the JLP has to explain why they didn't have enough people at the meeting. If the PNP outmaneuvered them, well, what do you expect? So I'm saying is, as far as I can see, the PNP did nothing illegal. That's my understanding. I'm not an expert, but that's what I'm gathering. They did nothing illegal. There's a convention, but the convention, which obviously depends on both sides bringing equal, forces to the table. Once you don't bring your forces to the table, then you're going to depend only on convention. And I say that's incompetence. So as I said, I see nothing wrong with the PNP taking advantage of the weakness of their opponents. And the JLP has to answer the questions. Why didn't you have enough people there? Who is your leader? And these questions must be asked. As I said, politics depends for the good of the people. It assumes both sides are going to put equal forces of importance on issues. Because if one side doesn't care, the other side can do anything they want, which is essentially what happened here. The JLP didn't bring enough people, so they didn't care if the PNP got a deputy mayor and the mayorship. As I said, the JLP incompetence, disorganization, lack of leadership, that is the question here. Not the PNP taking advantage of the legal situation, not doing anything illegal.
And on that, do you see any way forward for the JLP caucus in terms of challenging this decision, or at this point it's essentially just sour grapes?
Sour grapes. Yes, sour grapes. Yes, you hear all these big fancy words, when you don't have any substance, right? So clearly they feel there's no substance in what they have, so they're talking about the morality and this and that. This is politics. This is the same KSMC, which last year we hear, what did that then? Didn't got this big building approved, built it without any approval. And 2 days later we hear it's approved by both JLP and PNP. People don't have any high regard for the morality of the KSMC. Trust me, I've had to deal with them myself. And it's not a matter of which party is in power. Their reputation is not good. So for them to talk about morality and all that is a joke to a lot of people. And I'm not deprecating any individuals there. Don't get me wrong, I don't even know the people there, but I'm talking about as an organization, as an entity over the years. It is not one that has distinguished itself, where people have great confidence in them. to do things properly and expedite things. So it's a crummy system. Both sides have contributed to it, and it's another indication of how poorly run and organized this thing is when the opposition doesn't even care what happens, and then balling afterwards.
Stay with us, Kevin. We're up on a break. We're in a vote for the deputy mayor during a tie. The convention is that it goes to the party which lost the popular vote. But in this instant case, because the JLP did not show up with the numbers necessary to enforce that convention, the PNP, sensing blood in the water, took advantage and elected one of their own to the deputy mayor slot. So, Kevin, and I think you hit the nail on the head before we left. You spoke to the degradation of the local government system, and this being another example of it. But on the surface of it, though, Kevin, you'd expect that being political operatives, the JLP would not allow this to happen. What has happened here within the party for this to take place at that level?
First of all, let me say, somebody does tell me, say, boy, you fool. You cut off the KSMC and you have to deal with them. And I have some things going right there, but some land approval stuff. So I just hope I'm not getting myself weird. I'm going to blacklist me there. Because I'm only trying to speak as a Jamaican who respects our democracy to the maximum, but democracy requires on-the-ball politicians. As I said, we elect them expecting that they will pay attention to what is going on and defend their own to the maximum. I mean, party politics depends on both sides, doing the work necessary to make the system work. We expect young confrontations and all that, but we expect that you are going to do a competent job as a government in power or the party in power. And the opposition will do a competent job, also do their best. And then both sides are doing their best to get a robust, debate, robust situations where both are trying. In this case, the JLP didn't even try. So when you talk about the political system, how can we, the voters, account for laziness in politicians? We elect them, assuming they're going to try. And then some of them, they don't even try. They don't care. All I can conclude from what went on, the JLP did not care what happened. Otherwise, why would they be caught so flat-footed?
Well, I understand that we are to expect a statement from the JLP caucus on this matter soon. We invited...
Do they have a leader? I'd like to know who is their leader. If they don't have a leader, that's even more condemnatory. I mean, can't even take the thing serious enough to appoint a leader for your side. Well, it's like a football team going on or a cricket team with no captain.
Well, we expect to find out who the leader of that caucus will be. I'm sure their name will be on the statement regards to what happened at the KSMC.
On the show then? If they have a leader, why am I speaking on them, not them?
Well, as I was going to say, Kevin, we did invite the members of both sides to come on this show, but as I understand it, the party's general secretaries told them, no, leave the matter as it is. We will send out statements on the issue. So they were invited to attend today, but unfortunately, the party has told them not to come on the program, and we should expect them to send out a statement in their stead.
And they want us to respect them as an institution? Imagine that. Imagine a cricket team, and congratulations to the West Indies today. I used to be the biggest cricket fan in the world. I don't follow it much, but I see today they beat England. So cricket comes to mind. Imagine a cricket team going on a field without a captain. That is the equivalent of the JLP caucus not having a leader. Nobody to make a decision that said, do or ask a question that say this is what should be done. That is the height of incompetence and laziness.
But Kevin, there is another matter that will most likely overshadow this incident coming tomorrow, and that is the throne speech and the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. As a political commentator and as a businessman, what are your expectations?
Well, we know the hurricane came. We know it wiped out, what, 1/3 of the GDP?
Yes, yes, about 40%, yes.
Right. And so people must expect that it's going to be a tough budget. We've had 8 years, how many years in a row of the JLP no taxes?
This would be the 10th fiscal year without an increase or change in the tax.
And that is nice, but they say on calm seas, anybody can pilot a ship on a calm sea, right? Now we have the first major interruption. Well, we had COVID and the whole worldwide thing. So that was smoothed up because of the worldwide situation. Everybody worked together. This is a Jamaica-specific thing. We got hit. We have to deal with it. And surely Jamaicans are mature enough to realize that, hey, tough things happened. And what they're saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So we're going to have the government has to do what it can to settle the situation for Jamaicans, and it's going to require money. And government money only comes from taxes. So if we see a tax increase, surely all Jamaicans will realize that, well, what option did they have? It was an act of God. 40% of your GDP wiped out. You can't blame the government that they didn't create the hurricane. All they can do is take the measures to get things back to normal. And money doesn't drop from the sky. So yes, it is expected there's going to be some tax increases, some belt tightening, and what would we expect after the most powerful hurricane to ever hit Jamaica? That everything's going to be just like it was before? Unfortunately, life is not like that.
But tell me, Kevin, outside of the expectation that there may be additional taxes levied, is there anything you believe should be specifically included or the budget to be tailored in a specific way to assist with the hurricane recovery?
Well, as I said, I have great confidence in the finance minister and the prime minister to do what needs to be done. I don't think we have to get into any details and minutiae. But I think most Jamaicans, and I do, that expect that whatever is done will be in the best interest of the country and in the best interest of everyone. Of course, it is only natural that the people who are the hardest hit, the people in Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth, must get some special features that will look to their situation. And people in the rest of the country, you might have the point where some is taken from the rest of the country to help the specific people who are hurt, how their houses were mashed down, and this kind of stuff. So yes, it's natural to me. You live in a country that, yeah, I am going to suffer a little bit to help the less fortunate, those who are hit. I'm in Kingston, hardly got touched. Thank God. If Kingston what had happened in Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth had happened in Kingston, the country was set back 10 years. So Kingston was not hit. We expect Kingstonians some kind of way will have to give some of what, their largest that didn't get hurt to help the people who were hurt. I think Jamaicans are fair-minded, and while some people will bawl and this and that, they will expect that, yes, the government is doing what needs to be done, and the more fortunate will have to help out the less fortunate. And you might have where the richer people get taxed more to help the less fortunate, as it should be.
And tell me, Kevin, I don't know if you followed the news today. The Prime Minister gave a few more details about the National Recovery and Resilience Authority, NARA. It will get a portion of the capital budget specifically for itself in order to deal with matters of resilience and recovery and reconstruction. Do you see that as the right way forward?
But the same principle I'm talking about, that the NARA will be getting money to help the less fortunate. And it has to come from the more fortunate. I mean, it's only common sense. You had to divide up a pie. The pie is only so big. And you said, well, sorry if the court give you a little less slice, because I'm giving those people more because they're hungrier than you. And that is the reality. And we will hear the bawling, and I only hope that the people will be responsible and not knee-jerk, and that those, assuming the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are fair-minded, which I believe they are, and competent, that those who get squeezed to help people who need more help than them will be responsible in their comments. Nobody likes to have to dish out money. It's human nature. But when you see dished out because it's a good cause, they take out of your pocket to help others, You should be responsible. You might ball a little bit, but you're responsible in your comments and not irresponsible. And I want to make a point that Jamaica, the last Gallup poll showed Jamaica as #1 in the world for volunteering, for helping people, helping strangers, and #9 in the world for volunteering. We are a giving, generous-hearted people in general. And I expect that same generosity of spirit to extend to everyone affected by the budget. And I say my assumption is, of course, that the Prime Minister and Finance Minister are competent, knowing what they're doing, and fair-minded.
Well, that is a very uplifting note to leave it on. Kevin, thank you for joining us. That's Kevin O'Brien Chang. He is a political analyst, and he joined us today to discuss matters of the KSMC and the upcoming budget and throne speech. Thank you for your time, Kevin.
No problem at all.
Again.